It happened again. Another package bomb exploded in Texas today, a state on high alert. This one set off at a FedEx facility near San Antonio. It all started on March 2nd. A 39-year-old father killed by a bomb mailed to his house in Austin. 10 days later, two similar attacks nearby, killing another and injuring two. The fourth bomb went off Sunday. This one on the side of the road in a residential neighborhood and rigged with a tripwire. Two people hurt. And early this morning, a fifth explosion at a FedEx facility. One worker was injured. An intense manhunt is currently underway before the killer or killers strike again. Here's President Trump.
The bombings in Austin are terrible. Local, state, and federal are working hand in hand to get to the bottom of it. This is obviously a very, very sick individual, or maybe individuals. These are sick people, and we will get to the bottom of it.
Joining us now from Austin, Texas, Casey Siegel, who's been closely following this unsolved mystery. Casey.
Hey, Kimberly, good to see you and be on with all of you guys. You know, things took a very different turn today when these unexploded devices were found at FedEx distribution locations. At least one we have confirmed for sure. That means now, instead of someone just placing these on someone's doorstep like we previously saw, or putting it in a residential neighborhood with a tripwire, which is what we saw here on Sunday, this is where it gets different, because now we're talking about someone physically putting a package into the distribution system. And so they go to giant places like this one back here, multiple FedEx locations across central Texas being investigated. And we want to kind of break them down for you, okay? Because there is a lot of moving parts and a lot of conflicting information, frankly, that's out there. This is a big location right here in Austin, and it is on the outskirts of Austin Bergstrom International Airport. Now, officials say that a suspicious package was found here this morning, and it has closed the whole thing down. Spencer, if you could, my photographer, go on into the mobile command unit back there, because we should point out there was no explosion here, just a suspicious package is all they'll say. But see that mobile command unit back there? Austin Police, a very big presence here, in addition to ATF and FBI agents. So we've got that here. Now, the second location, that is in Shirts, which is near San Antonio, a Shirts distribution center. And that is where the package exploded this morning when it was going down a conveyor belt. You imagine those big Amazon distribution sites and the United States Post Office, all of the mail and packages are being sorted every which way on those belts. It was going down one of those belts, apparently, when it went off. And fortunately, no one was right next to it, so no serious injuries. There was some initial talk about a second package that was found at that location. It did not detonate, but that it maybe contained explosive materials. Police have since walked that back, and they've said that now only one package was found at that location, the one that went off. Then we've got a third spot, and that is in Sunset Valley, which is only 2 miles or so from Sunday night's crime scene. And officials in Sunset Valley have roped off a FedEx store there. And the thought is that the package that exploded at that distribution center down near San Antonio, that it might have originated from that location. Again, only 2 miles from Sunday's scene. So it is a little confusing. You have multiple locations, multiple victims, and a whole lot of concern because, again, this is a city on alert. Some 420 calls of suspicious packages came into 911 just in the last 24 hours, according to Austin Police. And you can imagine that is straining the resources, guys.
All right, Casey, we have a couple of questions. We're going to take it around the table. Okay, Dana.
Yeah. Casey, what's the advice to the citizens there? Because, I mean, 420 packages, I mean, if you get that many calls, it's going to take a while for the police to get there.
Right, but they are wanting to make sure that they dot all of their I's and cross their T's, which is why Governor Abbott, the governor of Texas, and others have diverted a lot of law enforcement resources here. There are more than 500 federal agents alone 500 federal agents, ATF, FBI, boots on the ground here, and that is not including all of the Austin police officers and the bomb squads that have been brought in from Houston PD and the rest. So they're flooding it with resources so they can follow up on every single one of these tips. But the primary message being sent to the public is to remain vigilant, and if you see something, say something. I was talking about this yesterday in our reporting. You know, we're used to doing that at, say, the airport or at a big public event, the Super Bowl, a game or something. However, not so much when you're in a residential neighborhood or if you're in a McDonald's or something, let's say. So they're asking people, if you see something, do not touch it, and call police so they can come follow up on it, Dana.
Thank you.
Okay, Juan has a question for you, Casey.
Casey, what about copycats? Yeah. Do we know, is this the work of one person or multiple people? Is there anything like that that is giving us some hint as to what's going on here? And I have a follow-up after you finish.
Yeah, well, that's a good question because there is concern always with copycat crimes, and that's one of the reasons police say they're being very guarded with the information they release. That's why they said there are only similarities with the explosive devices that have gone off so far. The similarities they won't go into a great detail with, because if they release too much information, as you know, say something perhaps only the bomber or the bombers would know themselves, they don't want to put that out there into the public so that people, A, don't copy the crime, and B, they don't want to jeopardize their investigation. So right now, they don't believe that this is a copycat situation. It could be the work of one person or more, they say. Frankly, they simply don't know, Juan.
Casey, just a quick follow-up. You know, initially, the two people who died were black men. And then there was the suspicion on the part of the Congressional Black Caucus that, they should be identified as a terrorist act. And then you had the NAACP saying to the black community. But then the last two people injured were white. So where does that stand now?
Well, it kind of threw the whole, targeting instance or motive potentially that was being discussed kind of out the window is how I gathered it from law enforcement yesterday, because you're right, the first several bombings, the first three that started on March 2nd, one man was killed, and then 10 days later, two people killed in a single blast. These were all packages that were left on a porch. They didn't go through a distribution center. They weren't mailed. They were just dropped off on the porch overnight, and then the people opened them or moved them and caused the explosion. The victims were African American or Latino, and these were in East Austin, traditionally known as a lower income area, if you will. So that's where that theory came out, that they might have been targeting specific groups of people, a hate crime, something like that. But with the tripwire being put on the device on Sunday, police say that meant it was designed to hurt anybody who had discovered it. So not a specific person. So that kind of took the weight out of that argument a little bit.
All right. Casey, thank you. Okay, we'll take it around the table. Greg, your thoughts on this? We've had it laid out in terms of the facts and what the police and authorities know so far. Obviously reluctant in the middle of an investigation to give out some of the characteristics or signature elements of the bombs and how they compare or they're dissimilar in some respects.
Clearly, we don't know much from that. So these events just show, once again, how an individual or a group of individuals can command an audience, and it's as contagious as it is alluring. It could be copycats. It could be one person. Media coverage focuses on it so heavily that it's just irresistible to continue. And the challenge in this world is to somehow fight this numerical significance where one person, a shooter or a bomber or a terrorist, can affect thousands of people or, in fact, millions because all of the network coverage. So he's already affected the world, and it will be seen as a success. Meanwhile, the real lesson from all this is that, evil deeds succeed with proper planning. As long as you plan ahead, we still don't know anything about Vegas. We know nothing. And the reason why we don't know anything is because he planned for 2 years. That's why we have to plan. A half a plan cannot go up against a full plan. Clearly, this is a planned event. And we have to learn. We have to plan against these planners. He who plans wins.
All right. Kadena.
Well, I was just thinking about, I know that as of yesterday, they had 500 federal law enforcement officers on the ground in order to help. That probably has doubled. And it's not just happening in Austin, where you have to be vigilant, because copycats, if you have something on national media, copycats could happen anywhere in the country. And so the resources that are required in order to deal with things like this, to hopefully disrupt plans, if you can, but if not, then deal with the aftermath. I mean, local law enforcement and state governments are having a big problem on their hands because they got a lot of resources, a lot of things that they need to spend money on, and there's not enough money to go around. And so the most important thing, one, is economic growth, which thankfully we have right now, but planning ahead, because these types of things are going to continue. It's not just localized anymore. It's not just going to be in the Austin American-Statesman. It's going to be all over the world.
Okay. Jesse.
Well, I'll speculate because there's really nothing else to talk about. It's not ISIS, in my opinion, because it's not spectacular and there's no video and they haven't claimed credit for it.
Or claims, yeah.
So far. The racial angle was interesting because at the beginning it was 3 minorities and it was 2 white men. I just don't like how it becomes so racialized right at the beginning. But I think they're still leaving that open, but let's just put that aside. To me, it looks like a serial killer that doesn't want to get his hands dirty. Someone that enjoys toying with law enforcement, someone that enjoys the gamesmanship of it all, and someone that I think is going to get caught pretty soon, because there's video cameras all over these distribution centers. Whenever you drop off a package, there's going to be surveillance footage. It's obviously someone sophisticated because they have the tripwire technology, so it's not an idiot, but it's not someone, CIA, it's not that high level. It's obviously someone that gets the materials from a local store, from what we're hearing from the senators. Maybe an anarchist, someone that just likes death and destruction. It's really hard to tell. It's just sad because Texas and Florida at this point have suffered so greatly in the past year, whether it's natural disasters or these shootings or these bombings. It just takes a special type of citizen in these 2 states to reckon with it. And Texas, like they always do, is doing a very good job.
Yes, also I think what's interesting is they have an unexploded device now that they're going to be able to study, which is going to be significant because it's almost impossible to not leave some kind of trace of DNA or forensics that could be a clue. And then you have all the pieces, the parts, intact. They can trace back the origination of where all of them were purchased or where they came from and look to see any similarities there. And then there's just the construction of it, which can actually show the detail of a particular group, if it's a terrorist or a sole actor, et cetera. Juan, your comments.
Well, I think that what we know is that there have been a variety of delivery methods used on these bombs. So it's not all the same bomb. And then today I was watching Dana's show at 2, and she had on an expert who said that, in fact, the detonation caps are different and very difficult to obtain. And so if you go and find the source, which is what Kimberly was just suggesting, of those detonation caps or detonation caps that were lost, that's going to be a big clue. But they
could be doing that on purpose to obfuscate, so they wouldn't be able to determine that it was one single or sole actor, to make it appear that it is multiple individuals.
Yeah, but it could be the same. I don't know. That's what we don't know. But it could be that one guy has somehow obtained these detonation caps. And the second point here is that you have, I think, a lot of people who are, at the moment, alarmed and uptight. And I think that can't be overstated, how nervous people are in Austin and what's going on now. Why Austin? Why at this moment? And it's not clear.
Okay, well, it seems so far the kind of the tone and tenor that they're looking at, like a serial bomber who's being very clever to not reveal himself, not put any manifesto out, to that avoiding any attempts to communicate with law enforcement and FBI.